We just got a surprise gameplay demo walkthrough of Cyberpunk 2077. What did we think? Hot take! The folks from CD Projekt Red showed off a whole bunch of gameplay from Cyberpunk 2077 on Twitch. This is an intense look. It was basically an hour's worth of just gameplay, and it looked intense. Like this was way more than I was expecting to see.
Right. It was a vertical slice of game, some of which had supposedly already been seen at E3 previously. What we had seen was similar to the, I guess, behind closed doors demo at E3, and apparently the same chunk was shown off at Gamescom as well, but with some differences, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah. So basically, at E3, they were showcasing all of this stuff in closed-door sequences, and every journalist, every game reviewer that saw it was just, like, astonished at what they saw.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that the vertical slice was the same. That's what reports are, but some things might have been different because as the developers are really pointing out, the things you do in this game, even the minute things, have that butterfly effect, that ripple effect, and there are consequences for almost like a lot of the interactions that you do in this game, which is one of the most exciting things I'm taking from this demo.
The gameplay looks phenomenal. There seems to be a lot of interactive elements just all over the place, including with the advertisements and stuff like that too.
It's like, where do you start with this, Shane?
There looked like there's a ton of different gameplay options, a bunch of conversations you can have. It looked like a hybrid mix of Deus Ex and like Johnny Mnemonic and Blade Runner.
We were calling out the sort of like inspirations as we were seeing them. We're like, that's like that movie, and that's like that game, and that's like that tabletop, and like it's just it's like, intense.
There was a lot of stuff going on there. Primarily the things I was most interested in seeing, and something that really changes the stuff. Now keep in mind, what we saw was gameplay for about an hour. There was no loading sequences. There was vehicle gameplay as well, where you could drive around, and not just basic vehicle gameplay. It actually looked like some pretty intense stuff that was going on, where somebody took the wheel and you were shooting at people in a car, and it looked really amazing. Like that's the kind of stuff that when you get to certain games that you see, like let's just say Deus Ex as an example. Deus Ex typically doesn't have vehicle sequences because they're really focusing on like the RPG gameplay of it and the exploration mechanics of it. What they were showing here was something very radically different that kind of played things out. Now, they were saying that there's a pacifist run option where you can go around and just choose not to do things that hurt people. And I was thinking to myself, how do you do the pacifist run of like somebody driving in front of you with their van and goes to shoot at you? Shoot their tires.
You shoot their tires, and then just you get the heck out of Dodge. Maybe you can like lose them in traffic or start veering through the city. The one thing about this is that there's so much everywhere, right? The cityscape feels like a dense forest of just stuff. So yeah, I'm sure if you needed to lose people or whatever, you could do that. One thing that you had pointed out that we really, I really appreciate seamlessness. Right? Whereas we do see games like Deus Ex maybe being the inspiration for some of what's going on here. There was never that sort of seamlessness in the newer Deus Ex games. There were some sort of like loading and going to different chunks of places in Deus Ex, where here there was not a single loading screen to be seen. I don't know if they're hiding things in certain places. This is CD Projekt Red. They're very good at making games.
They're very good. See, here's the thing. I don't necessarily want a giant cityscape that is just impossible to traverse. I'd rather there be far more elements in one, like a smaller area with a lot more things going on. So this looked like it's that kind of mentality. It's probably going to be like a big area to go around, but it's still like there's a lot of densely populated things. There's a lot of things to do in a specific area, and that's what I like. I like that there seem to be a lot more to interact with, and that makes, I think that makes a world like this far more interesting to be a part of than one that is just massive and open and kind of bland.
So do you think it's safe to say that what we've seen today was basically the starting of the game? Like, or within the first hour or so?
It looked like there was a lot of just beginning elements there. There was a lot of tutorial stuff. You had actually mentioned, there's this one part where she's getting, the main character V is getting a body modification, and it's like kind of slowly done, and not like crazy slow, it's not as fast as you'd probably expect. And I think the reason they did that is to just show you the animation once, and then the next one you get is just like, it just clicks, you know?
Yeah, because I think a part of that was like a story beat where you're like talking to the doctor as well, setting up your character. Oh, you don't usually pay all that much, or maybe you're late on your payments and stuff. It's setting up your character. So I'd imagine that the next sort of doctor that you go to get upgrades upgrades, it's probably just zoop, like the screen pops up, you choose whatever you want, and then the installation is maybe a fade to black and then a fade back in.
Now, as you mentioned, they were showing male gameplay over at GameStop.
Yeah. Okay, so the chunk that we saw today was female gameplay. In both versions, you're a character named V, right? So in the female version, it's the exact same chunk, but the dialogue is re-recorded, I guess, for the male dialogue and female dialogue. It's not the same, and it's not as simple as just inserting he or she. The dialogue, like I said, is re-recorded, and it's different depending on what gender you play as.
Yeah, I imagine. Like I would have to assume if you go to a certain character that has like a better relationship with men or women or whatever it may be, the dialogue options are probably going to change there. And CD Projekt Red is like, this is something that they can do because we've seen them capable of doing this in the past with all their other games.
So what we did see, we saw your character was going in and saving a woman who, I think there were salvagers that were ripping people apart and stuff. We thought that was basically all we were going to see was that one mission from today. And what were some of the elements that you saw there that really stuck out to you? Because I remember there was a lot of like ooh and ah moments that we had, right?
So there looked to be pretty good gunplay mechanics and components like that. There looks like there's some kind of modifications that your character can utilize, or like kind of like one-use items that give you buffs. So, for instance, if you're looking at an RPG in that sense, you have the ability to aim faster. You have the ability to shoot faster. And those are like one-use things that don't last forever. But then there's also hacking mechanics that are at play. There's the ability to, like there was certain gunshots. This might have been a contextual event, which means it only happened in this one area. But there was bullets actually breaking apart a wall, and then you kind of sneak behind and start shooting at the guy from another angle. Then your other friend bursts through the wall and knocks the guy down.
Right.
And those things there show strategic elements of gameplay. They show gunplay elements, and at that same point, apparently there was a way to go through that entire sequence without shooting anyone, right?
That's what they said.
The idea,
Pacifist run, So we had seen that, and you wind up saving this woman, and you give her to some sort of military paramedics, it seems like. I don't remember exactly what they were called.
It's basically health insurance is what that is, right?
Yeah.
So, like, apparently they put, like, a blocker in her neck, and the blocker prevented, like, a security call from going out, and the moment she was getting sick or whatever, like they just fly on down, they take care of you on the spot, right? But they couldn't do that with that thing.
And I loved the fact that the medics or whatever that were coming in, they don't know who you are. So they come in like they're there to like save this woman, but their guns are squarely pointed at you, like, hey, deliver the package to us. And we don't want anything else to do with you. Your character even says, like, hey, can we maybe get a ride? Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah. They were showing, so this obviously isn't like our future. This is side future. So for just a great example of this, they were showing credit chips. So credit chips are basically like a credit card that has a certain amount of money on it, right? This is technology that wouldn't necessarily exist from this point forward. This is older style ideas moving forward from a different time. You can clearly see an 80s inspiration from all the technical design and stuff like that.
Yeah.
An 80s inspiration, like basically the way that you're looking at people and like outlining folks, that's really close to something you would have seen in RoboCop and
Terminator.
stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the idea. It's an alternative reality where the future goes, or future technology goes in a completely different way, which is not realistic at all, but that's the fun part. It's made up, right?
Let's talk a little bit more about the tech that we did see.
Yeah.
So we saw some really cool guns, and then we started pointing out. Well, there was one gun. We're both kind of looked at each other and we're like, Fifth Element,
right? Because it looked like it was from Fifth Element. It was really cool.
So
it's like a reverse gun. You hit the target once, and then it just keeps on targeting all the time.
Yeah.
Well, this one is just like it knows where the people are, and it just keeps the bullets just kind of fly whatever direction they.
There have been other guns in games like in Resistance that have done that as well.
Yeah,
but
Titanfall as well.
Yeah, you can clearly see that they're taking elements from a bunch of different things, and it's not just like this game is an homage, but they're giving you something that just feels so like brand new, right? So some of the other tech we saw something that they kind of warned us, like, okay, again, this is a gameplay demo. This might not be in the final version, or it might be tweaked in a way, but we saw some hacking.
Yes.
Right?
So what they did was neural net hacking. So you see the person, and you kind of bring somebody down.
Take them down.
And then you kind of plug into their head, and then you go through, like, the actual network for the building that you're in.
Again, we called out Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah,
right? It seemed like a Ghost in the Shell, like,
exactly
sequence.
like that, right? So they explained that there's, like, a lot of things you can do there, but clearly there's probably an option in there to just make everyone fall asleep. right?
Yeah, and those kind of things, like, is that an upgrade that you get much later in the game? Because that would make things really simplistic, maybe.
Well, if the world is going to be as open as they stated, right, then that means, I would imagine, like, just turning everyone to sleep or whatever, that's probably like a virus, and it's probably one use, right? They've probably done something like that. Time stuff, right? Yeah. But one thing that they've shown that I think is very important to keep in mind, what we saw in the path that it kind of laid out didn't have to happen that same way. Like, you didn't have to go into the back of that room and get modifications. You could have just left.
Right.
You didn't have to go up to that car. There was an option right there. Say, I'm not going to go talk to them.
So one.
And then a completely different path would have happened.
Exactly. Sorry to interrupt. So one thing about the Gamescom 2 E3 demos was that, yeah, they were the same vertical slice, but reports are coming in that the Gamescom demo, where you played as the male version of V, the exact same situation towards the end when you were kind of trying to get that robot back. You're buying a robot from like a gang of thieves, I guess. In the version that we saw today, you wind up giving them credits, and then there's like a viral infection that goes throughout all the bad dudes, right? And a gunfight winds up commencing. But in the Gamescom slice, when they played as the male character, they handed them the credit chip and said, "Hey, look, this is a little shady. You might want to look into this chip card because there could be a problem." And the punks who had stolen the robot were like, "Hey, thanks." And they could basically get out of that situation scot-free. So you wouldn't have that gunfight there, but maybe you would have problems with the
corporation.
Yeah, the corporation that sent you in to infect them with the virus.
See, I think that's really cool. If they're really going for that kind of like movement freedom type of thing, I think that what we've seen in Deus Ex in the past, and what we've seen from games like that, have been really good attempts at creating that, and really great games in their own right.
Right.
But they've always had this narrative that had a couple of different paths, not to a huge range of extent. So I'm wondering if what they're doing here is trying to make a fully branchable path system that really expands on things.
It feels like it.
Instead of 3 paths, 17, right?
That's towards the end of the demo. There's a moment where you're like kind of transitioning from a mission to like walking outside, and they made a point of saying like, "Hey, look, what would have happened if you didn't take that initial deal? What would have happened if you didn't get those augmentations? What would have happened if..." They're saying like, it's a world of possibilities, and I feel like because of games like Mass Effect and Deus Ex, promising and delivering on various degrees, I feel like CD Projekt Red was watching this and saying like, no, we want the full spectrum.
Sure, yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how much this game can deliver, because as much as you can say you can do anything, there are always limitations. There always is, right? So we'll have to see where those barriers are.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I have so much fun with games like this, is trying to find what those barriers are, what the limits are, and being able to do anything. Like in Grand Theft Auto, when I first played those games, I tested out the world as much as I can. I tried to drive cars into buildings. I tried to do whatever I could because I wanted to see where it stops, right? Now, one thing I loved about what CD Projekt Red did here was they reinforced this is an early build of the game. This is an early build. When you looked at the game, there was some noticeable visual glitches that were happening every so often. That I like to see, because that tells me what I was seeing was an actual engine, was an actual real-world working game. And when you see gameplay implementation, sometimes they fake it.
Yeah. So we pretty well knew that this was direct gameplay because of some of the clipping, right? We saw hair clipping. We saw like some of the mouth lip sync was a little iffy. And it was like, okay, you're not giving us that Watch Dogs experience where, everything's perfect and everything looks like completely beautiful.
Yes.
You're giving us a bit of the ugly along with it, and warning us, hey, this is a demo. And it looked like a something that's still being worked on. It looked like
you could actually play it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important. I love when developers do this stuff because it's okay. Like, any developer that's watching, if you're going to show a demo of something, it's okay to have a couple of glitches here and there, if only because it kind of proves to us as gamers that, this is real. Like, this is what the game. Like,
it's almost like
we're gonna try and make it better. But what they've shown was solid enough that even if those glitches were in the game, it wouldn't bug me that much.
It's like seeing the brushstrokes in a painting. We want to see that. I want to see that. I'm so sick and tired of these demos that are just basically like a rendered video
exactly.
of footage we'll never be able to actually play.
Yeah, because I wanted, like I saw once in a while the person that was playing didn't click on something exactly right, or like
walked away from an NPC while they're talking.
Exactly.
Like, okay, well, goodbye.
That's what we do, right? When we play games, do you literally sit there, or like do you just move on forward? The only thing that they weren't doing realistic that I noticed in the game was they were walking everywhere. I would be running. Like, no matter what, it's always, I'm holding down shift and I'm making the run for it, because I don't really care to be standing there going,
it's
let the jolly walk will go
for the sake of the demo, you have the slow panning movement. Like, we've captured footage before. You want the people watching to like not feel sick or something like that, right?
So I think there might be a couple people that were watching the demo and they thought, well, this is slow gameplay. It looks like it's going to be very fast. In fact, the boss battle where they were showing you like an area of the boss that had to be destroyed to destroy the shield and stuff, that was a really cool looking fight, because what they were showing is that there's actual skill that takes place in order to do that attack. And no doubt, if you wanted to, you could probably achieve that same goal of destroying that boss without ever using any abilities and stuff.
They say it can be completely passive. And what I really liked about that boss fight was that you could use the environment. Your partner was using a car as a freaking shield. It looks like the possibilities are, of course, not endless, but there's a lot of really interesting things going on here that I want to see everything at this point. So
absolutely. Now, we don't know what system this was on. I'm going to make the assumption that this was on PC. This is CD Projekt Red. That's what they're most familiar with. But we know for a fact that those guys are very well capable of making games on a bunch of platforms to varying degrees of success.
So Xbox One as well, and PS4 as well.
Yeah. Definitely Xbox One X and PlayStation 4 Pro are probably going to get like some enhanced little things. But what I'm curious about is a game like this going to come to the Switch? Because if you could do something like this on the Switch, and I mean, like, obviously maybe the graphics got to be tuned down a little bit, I would be so excited to see that kind of gameplay style portable.
I feel like if we were to see this on the Switch, maybe it would be something like what they did with Resident Evil 7 in Japan, or are going to do with that whole streaming service
thing. I hope that doesn't happen.
I know, but I'm just thinking, like, looking at this tech demo today, like...
Well, we don't know. It could be largely scalable, you know? Like, you can really scale the Witcher games down to such a degree.
CD Projekt Red has done some pretty incredible things.
Yes, right? So. And this is the thing, right? If this was a third-party company that wasn't making their own engines, wasn't making their own game development stuff to that extent, I would doubt the ability of this coming to a platform like that. But with them working the way they are and knowing the kind of tools that they have access to and being able to work with things dynamically, I really feel like the ball is in their court to make something like that happen. Now, as far as I'm concerned, from what I've seen, this is definitely a PS4, Xbox One, PC title. I don't think you're going to see it on the Switch, but
to me, even being on the Xbox One and PS4 is impressive.
So exactly.
The Switch is a bit of a step back, and I love the Switch.
But anyway, folks, what do you think? Are you excited for this game? Does it look really cool to you? If you're a fan of Deus Ex, is this giving you like nice Deus Ex vibes? If this game is successful,
it has all the vibes as far as I'm concerned.
If it's more successful, if it sells a lot of units, will we see another Deus Ex game? Right? All these questions and more need to be asked. But what do you think? Let us know.